This is Shifting Our Schools episode 113, Team Teaching in All Its Glory, with our guests, Jessia and Linda.
We have a large interactive whiteboard.
Okay.
Then we have essentially four smaller, about 40-inch monitors up on the walls. With one is in the reading nook area, but that can then be a workspace. And then we have these three peninsula tables, which will easily take about 6 kids around them. And they can just plug in their Chromebooks to the monitor and then literally just have the one monitor to look at.
Listen up, educators. Are you looking to take your classroom to the next level? The technological shift in education is happening right now. If you're looking to integrate technology into your classroom, you're in the right place. Welcome to Shifting Our Schools with your host, Jeff Udick.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Shifting Our Schools. Thank you for listening and subscribing to us in your favorite podcast player. If you aren't subscribed, you can do that right now by just searching Shifting Our Schools wherever you like to listen. We really do appreciate all of you who continue to spread the word about Shifting Our Schools. We'd love to hear your thoughts on different episodes, and you can do that by tweeting us using the hashtag SOS Podcast on Twitter or any social network, or let us know where you listen to the podcast. We always like to hear different places that you listen. Are you a listen in the car kind of person? Do you listen when you work out? It's amazing all the different places people get to listen to podcasts. You can also reach out to us via email at sospodcast@gmail.com or by using the contact form on our website over at sospodcast.org. sospodcast.org. Also, if you're at the NCCE conference in a week's time, find Chris Butler or I, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the podcast, what you like, what you don't like, what episodes you like us to do. And you could also pick yourself up a Shifting Our Schools sticker for your laptop while you're there as well. So please, if you're going to be at NCCE in a couple weeks' time, please do reach out, find Chris and I, and say hi. We always love hearing from our listeners. This is the last week you can leave a Flipgrid response to enter to win this awesome Flipgrid recording tent. I'm telling you, this thing is pretty awesome, and I'm excited to give this away to a classroom. You can see more about the Flipgrid tent over on our Flipgrid at sospodcast.org by clicking on Flipgrid in the menu at the top. How do you enter to win this amazing tent? And I still don't have anybody who's actually left a Flipgrid response, so this is your last week. All you have to do is leave us your Flipgrid response by going to sospodcast.org and clicking at Flipgrid at the top. You can either answer this week's question, give us feedback on an episode, talk about something we've talked about in an episode anytime between January and next week. So that's about it. That's all you have to do. It's not very difficult. Or if you can go over to our website, click on SOS at sospodcast.org, click on Flipgrid at the top, or download the Flipgrid app and enter code SOS Podcast. And from there, you can record directly from your phone. We will be using your responses in upcoming episodes, as we love to share what our community thinks about our podcast as well. Each week, we ask a question based on that week's episode for you to ponder about and give your response. So we even give you a question for you to answer for those of you that can't find something in an episode. This week's question, are you ready for it? What do you love about team teaching? If you've ever been in a team teaching situation, we love to hear about what you love about being in a team teaching situation. That's what this week's episode is all about. Again, enter to win that Flipgrid tent by recording your answer to this question over on our Flipgrid. And you can do that again at sospodcast.org and clicking on Flipgrid in the menu. Or if you'd like to, you can send us an email at sospodcast@gmail.com. And I'll probably read your email in the recording so that we all learn together. We grow by sharing and learning together, and that's what we're all about here at Shifting Our Schools. This week, Chris Butler and I have a chat with Jessia and Linda, 2 high school teachers who team teach in a blended learning, project-based, flexible seating environment. That's right, folks. They have the trifecta. You're going to love this one, and don't forget to check out the video of their classroom in the show notes. If you want to see what a modern learning environment looks like, what a 2020 classroom should look like, you're going to want to look at the video in the show notes after you listen to this podcast. I'm excited for you to hear this one and to look at that video. And with that, on the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of Shifting Our Schools. So great to be here with Jessica and Linda tonight from Richland High School. So great to have you both here. And of course, my co-host, Chris Butler, day in the life of the tech coach.
Hi, guys.
River, Oregon. How you doing, my friend?
Yep, I'm doing good. I'm doing well. So Jeff, I was thinking about theme music, and I don't know if we have the budget for it, but the Beatles, A Day in the Life, it just makes sense. I mean,
It does. If only we have,
right?
I'll have to,
if only we had.
So first, let me look at the budget, which is zero.
Okay.
And then I'll reach out to the Beatles and see if that works
right.
with getting the rights to the song. But
I think that'd be great.
How was your day today, my friend?
So the day was okay. I was at another residency out at a school. So I spent the day during school in the building. A couple teachers invited me in. So I'm starting to build some traction there, which is nice. I ended the day at a meeting with all the district administrators, the building administrators from the district, and the 4 coaches, and which was it's kind of an interesting thing because, and I'm just going to be straight up honest, because I've had a lot of other coaches reach out to me and talk to me about this, and they're
Cool.
kind of having struggles about this too. So I love my administrators, but I have no desire to be one. And the way that the coaches in this district are set up is we're more of district level coaches, almost like a coordinator level at other districts. And so it's an interesting mix trying to figure out how that works and how my role is supposed to be with that focus, but also like in my heart, like I talked about this in our last podcast when we were talking with Pat, and I talked about my day in the life. Like I want to be in classes more. And so it's kind of this weird mix. Since I've had other coaches reach out and say like, hey, I'm having the same thing. Like what are some ideas? How can we figure some things out? That sort of thing. So, during the day was great. After school was like, those other duties as assigned, right?
Yeah, the other duties as assigned. I like that. That's a good way to put it. So, yeah, and that's always the struggle, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot going on a lot of times I find that when districts start down the coaching path, it's really undefined. Those job roles are undefined. And so people kind of end up fitting kind of where that is. And then of course you come in as like the second coach, and that job description doesn't fit what you want to do, even though they hired you saying, I want to be in classrooms. You're like, yes, that's what we want, but that's not really what we want you to do. Like there becomes this really weird thing. And so trying to figure out where you fit and how do you structure that, and helping. I think the biggest thing is trying to help administrators understand what a true role of a coach is in the classroom supporting teachers. So,
I have that conversation with. I have that conversation with a lot of people that I talk to. Like I'm technically, my job title is the exact same title that I had before, instructional technology coach, but the role it's a completely different role.
Yeah,
and so it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Every district's that way. It's so crazy. Yeah. So it's great. Well, Jessica and Linda, it's so great to have you guys here. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. We're going to talk about your team teaching approach at Richland High School. But before we get started, we always like to hear your journey into education. How did you get here? Linda, let's start with you. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Talk about how did you end up being an educator?
Wow. Well, back in the day. No, honestly, it's like 40 years. And it started right here at Richland High. This is where I went to high school.
Wow, isn't that crazy?
And it was a cold-blooded decision. I went, wow, I'm pretty good at talking in front of people. I like drama. And I don't have the chops to become an actress. So where can I get summers off, talk in front of people, and do what I love? It was teaching. So I just started doing things at school like, what did we call it? The SERVE internship, where we'd go into elementary schools and work with kids. Mm-hmm. And I went straight off to an education degree, did my student teaching at Richland High, and got my first job here.
And there you are.
And many years have intervened, but I'm back.
That's great.
Man. We're glad that she is.
Well,
yeah. And Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, I love going after that story always.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually grew up on the west side of Washington, and if you don't know me, I'm only 5 foot tall, and I wanted to be a jockey. I did horseback riding, but I grew too tall for that, oddly enough. And so the next best thing was teaching.
It's a natural fit.
High school, I did teaching academy and went straight into. I just knew in high school I wanted to be an educator, so went straight into it. In college, actually worked at a smaller high school, kind of in a more rural area. Taught history there, and then was asked to teach special education because they couldn't find anyone to take a job there. And so went back, got my master's. So actually a couple degrees in, and
you outed yourself. We've been keeping that secret.
I know. And made it to Richland High after a couple moves, and have loved it here. So
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's jump in and talk about, so you guys team teach. Can you kind of talk about what does your classroom look like? What is that team teaching structure for you? Kind of walk us through that, because that sounds really cool.
Oh, well, they wanted to know what the teaching looks like. I thought they wanted to know what the classroom looked like.
Yeah. Well, we got the opportunity to team teach together, and we got the opportunity also to design the space that we teach in. So
cool.
we are exceedingly blessed in the fact that we got to kind of design both of those things and build both from the bottom up.
And these are related to how our teaching works.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So imagine kind of just the modern workspace. We don't have desks, tables, everything's on wheels, chairs on wheels, tables on wheels. Then we have monitors around the room where there are group standing tables where kids can work. And there's no way you can stand still, and there's no focal point in the room. That's what I mean about going with our team teaching. We're constantly on the move.
Yeah, we wanted it to be flexible, comfortable, and move around for what the kids need. So, at various times they'll be working we have kind of, just table height tables, and they're working there. They can move to these higher peninsula tables that we have as working stations, kind of the wobbly seats and that kind of thing, which we've learned you either love them or hate them, and make sure to warn the adults before they try to sit down. It's a little shaky.
Otherwise, they look like they're riding those mechanical bulls.
Yes.
They take
and they're not very happy.
Do kids have that much problem with them, or is it just an adult thing?
Kids at first sometimes too, but they look at it first, and I guess they just don't assume as much. I don't know. But again, even kids and adults, you either love them or hate them.
Yeah, interesting.
I love them, but and all of the tables are actually whiteboard top. So
cool.
we have pencil markers everywhere, and the kids are writing notes on the tables, drawing diagrams, helping each other, which we kind of thought, and people laughed at us about the whiteboard tables, like, well, that's kind of ridiculous. But once the kids started using it, and once the adults started using it, everybody loves it, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It makes so much more sense. Instead of having bits of notes on paper, they write it on the table, take a picture of it, upload it to their drive. It's just a simple.
And it's an easy way for them to kind of keep track as we're doing things. So like right now we're doing little kind of snippets of history, and they take some notes, but then what they're doing are some group Padlets on timelines and maps and kind of connecting things. So they're each writing little snippets down on the table, and then they can review what they all have, kind of synthesize and go over it, and then they actually do something with it and put it online. So you don't need the little snippets you had, because a lot of times when you start talking together, they realize, I did not grab what I needed to grab out of those notes, so it's been a really good kind of learning for them also in note taking, which is good for future.
And it's from direct instruction that they're taking these notes, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So both of you have taught in a structure, a room that's the more traditional structure, right? Desks and rows, typical, right? So what was the biggest adjustment both for you in this space, but also for the students? Was there a learning curve for them? Did they like it right away? Were they rocking and rolling?
Well, it was at very first, it was interesting because there were some errors in the order and some delays and things coming in. So there was about a month or so of kind of, they'd show up and there'd be new stuff and they'd be like, oh. And at first,
what's that chair do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know what to do with it. you know? So first, yes, they sit in the chairs and they zoom around and they just won't get up. They try to, like I make it an entire 2 hours without getting up from the chair while doing all these things, cause they're kids.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, they've really started to utilize it and realize, oh, we can, as a group, go work over here. We do have like a little couch and beanbag area and stuff too, but
kind of a reading nook area with a monitor that usually has like a little fireplace scene going on.
That's cool. So how many monitors are in your classroom? Like, do you have, so I'm trying to help listeners here kind of, and for myself, because I haven't actually seen your classroom, although I'm going to ask you to video it and give it to me. But do you have like the big projector front of the room, or no, you have smaller TVs around, or a little bit of both?
We have a large interactive whiteboard.
Okay.
Then we have essentially 4 smaller, about 40-inch monitors up on the walls with, one is in the reading nook area, but that can then be a workspace. And then we have these 3 peninsula tables, which will easily take about 6 kids around them. And they can just plug in their Chromebooks to the monitor and then literally just have the one monitor to look at.
Oh, that's awesome. That is, I was just working with a school district and they were saying, okay, how do we design a classroom for project-based learning? And I said, you need a minimum of 3 monitors, preferably 4. I want everything on wheels. And they were taking down all these notes. So I am going to ask you either tomorrow, like not tonight, you need to go home after this, but tomorrow, if one of you wouldn't mind just walking around with your cell phone and sending us a video, just say, this is what the classroom looks like. And we'll put that up on the podcast. Cause I think that's huge. When we talk about flexible spaces, being able to move, the other question I have for you is how often do they move? Cause one of the things I've seen is that you get all this furniture that has wheels, and then the teachers lock down the wheels and nobody moves. So how often are like those whiteboard tables moving around, kids coming together as a big group, pulling apart in small groups? How much of that kind of flexibility movement do you get?
Well, first, to be very clear, it's the kids who are locking them down. We're very happy to have them moving, but they need a little stability apparently.
Interesting. But they choose that, which is nice, right? Yeah, it's a choice.
We actually haven't rearranged when you see them, they're like a 2-person table.
Okay.
Haven't rearranged them that much because the kids themselves are moving during the class period. They are being regrouped around, so for example, and we have a 2-hour block. Right now they have what we're just calling kind of their working groups where they're processing and doing their Padlets together. And that's kind of in the first block. Then they will move to different parts of the room with their group, whether they want to use a monitor or go to the reading nook area. Then in the second half, they regroup again because we're doing literature circles where they're choosing a novel that they read together. Again, they are moving around the room. So we can, and we have, we've used it for Socratic seminar. We make it into the full seminar size. But mostly the kids are moving more than tables, we found.
Yeah, and they will move their chairs more often than their tables, and sometimes they'll be in some awkward arrangement. We're like, remember, the tables move, and they're like,
yeah, you can bring those with you.
Not as comfortable with that.
Yeah, they're just not as comfortable with that. They're like, that's all right.
It's almost just having the different areas for functionality. I think is really important, maybe more than the wheels. I think we're realizing.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Tables and things like
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah. And do you find, do kids choose, are kids like, what I love that you said, it was that, the first time a new piece of furniture arrives, the kids just zoom around in it and they want to just see if they can sit in it for the whole 2 hours, which is what we see with anything. And it's not an age thing. It's a human behavior thing. You get a new television, you sit and watch it for like 3 days thinking it's the best thing ever. And then you just, then it's just a TV. And a chair can be the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a cool chair. And then you're bored. Right. But we see the same thing in technology. And I keep coming back to this because I see teachers do this over and over again, that anytime you're going to introduce a new technology to students, give them time to sit in the chair and spin. Give them time to play with the technology, get all the wiggles out, and then you can go learn with it, right? It's the same concept. It's just human behavior and how we work.
Yeah, because even the Padlets that they're doing, I mean, we've done Padlets before and they've done Padlets, but they hadn't done the map version. And you can have different types of backgrounds. It could be it can be a loading. Oh my gosh. It's like, all right, so now as a group, just set it up. And hey, why don't you we're going to play around, grab a group name, figure out a group name, play around with the Padlet, change your background, do all that fun stuff, get that settled, and tomorrow we'll get to work on it.
Yeah, exactly. That's so good. Yeah. So good. Such a great strategy. All right. So then let's talk a little bit then what does your teaching structure look like with you guys team teaching now? We've got this cool room that's got white top table desks and you've got screens all over the place for kids to do kind of all kinds of group work. How does that then focus in on the way that you teach as a team?
Oh.
Well, I think it's definitely been a learning process. And I think it's interesting because so for 2 hours, Linda and I team teach. Okay. The next 2 hours, Linda team teaches with a different teacher in the same subject. And I go to coaching for the remainder. Okay. So, and our space is actually set up where the back kind of third of the room has the green screen curtain. And there's kind of an office space in the back there, and that's where I'm at. So I'm in and out and helping teachers and stuff. So I think the main thing that we've discovered is really planning and intentionality and having a common goal or driving question or critical thinking skill or something that we are working towards. As long as we have that in common and we have that in place, it's all worked out. I think it changes daily what we do and how we do it, just based on what our goal is.
So we will have, there's some direct instruction, which we trade off doing, or we tag team that. So and we always try to space ourselves at different ends, back or front of the room. It twists the kids around a little bit, but they live on little rolly chairs. They can do that. Sometimes, quite honestly, we've got this whiteboard. It's interactive whiteboard that is so sensitive that if you look wrong at it, sometimes it goes, he's out. So one of us sometimes has to go over to kind of the control station while the other one's talking. And so it's very fluid in that way. But it comes from, back to what you were saying, we know what our driving question is. We know what our skills are to be taught. We know the content we want to cover. And then when you're doing it, you'll miss something and one will say, and it's just a part of the gig that you're building off one another and adding back and forth. So,
isn't team teaching the best? Really? I mean, cool. when you find a partner that you literally you match up and you mesh like that, and there are no egos where you can say, the partner misses something, you're just like, oh, and remember, right? And you go with it. I mean, when you find that dynamic, I had it one time in my career and it was amazing. It's really hard to teach any other way, right?
Oh. Yeah. And it's so cool when you face plant at the end of the lesson and you look at each other and you go,
yeah. Wow, that just wasn't right.
Yeah. They put it together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's so good.
Let's reflect on it because I'm going to teach this next hour and I want to know what
to do. How do I do that differently? Great.
So when you guys are doing your planning time, preparing lessons, do you specifically say, okay, Linda, you take this section, I'm going to take this section. Is it that thought out or is it more fluid? Was it that at the beginning and you moved to a more fluid model?
I think with what we're doing, that has even changed. I think we've always had to find that big focus. And then from there, it's kind of figured itself out. When it's mainly, I take on more of the history. That's my kind of area. And Linda takes on more of the English, but that's not exclusive in either direction. But it is just, I'm a little bit more passionate about, my history stuff. So that's kind of been part of it, but I don't know that's not like a strict line of I do this and you do that. We usually kind of talk through it, or, hey, I want to take this part on and I want to do that part. All right, I'll do the other part. It's usually just fairly casual conversation in it.
Yeah, we play to each other's strengths, but we do complement each other. I tend to be way too cosmically global in my thinking, and Jessia is the one. Yeah, Linda, but these are 10th graders, so let's get it. In place, or they won't get the point of what you're saying. So that is really nice, and yeah,
we have definitely learned that through our planning. I mean, it's always sunshine and rainbows, but
always.
We never
But-
disagree.
No,
Yeah, I can
But-
imagine.
but we have definitely learned that we approach teaching and everything from opposite ends. So
Yeah.
I go from kind of step by step, the details into the larger picture, where Linda is a larger picture than down to the details. And so usually we talk in circles until eventually figure out where we have in common, and we can start kind of going from there. But at least now that we recognize that, we can both be in that conversation and realizing, all right, we just need to find that common ground. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can get going here.
Yeah.
And we work it out ahead of time, so we're not really imposing that craziness on the kids more than
Well,
is
yes.
necessary.
Yeah.
And that is definitely one thing we've learned, is that planning time together is
Yes.
essential. If you don't
Mhm.
have that, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
We've taken planning days with the three of us, so the other teacher that Linda team teaches with, in order for us to get especially those big things, because she does not have the same planning time with us. And so, you need to make that time in order for that part to be successful.
Yeah, I love that. And I like one of the things is when you talk about your collaboration partnership, there was a video that I was just showing today that's part of a training that I was doing today. And in the video, it's talking about what it takes to be creative and kind of the creative process that from a neuroscience standpoint. But in the video, he also talks about being creative in a partnership. And the line, and I love the line is, if you work with somebody that's a carbon copy of you, you might as well work alone. That you need to work with somebody that is different than you. Because if you work with somebody that thinks exactly the same way that you think, you don't talk each other in circles, which is learning, by the way. You don't try to find that common ground, meanwhile trying to understand that somebody else can have a completely different approach, and it's fine. That's what you want. If I work with somebody that thinks just like me, then we're not pushing each other. Isn't that's not true collaboration. And every time I think about that, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, of course, you don't want to work with a carbon copy of yourself. You want to work with somebody that's big picture to details, and the person that's detailed to big pictures, because that's the pull and push, right? Of creating a dynamic classroom.
We rock.
I know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
You guys are
yeah.
amazing. Can you talk about some specific examples that you use in your classroom, some strategies or things that have come out? I know, and I don't think we mentioned this for the listeners, but you're in a 1-to-1 Chromebook
Yes.
classroom. So are there things that you have seen that have come out of that? Are there different strategies you're using in your classroom? Can you kind of talk about some of those things that maybe you found work for an ELA high school classroom?
Okay, so as you know, global to detail. So I'm going to get there, but there's a piece I want to bring in first, which is we have really made it shift right down to actually having a specialized grading system that really takes away the power of the zero. We are all about standards referenced, formative assessment. So keeping that in mind, our strategies and really the whole structure of our course and the things we do all tie into that notion of what is something that is building to the standard, and then how do we assess it. So our bigger assessment pieces those are our projects. So I thought maybe we could talk about one of the projects that we did and how it was tying in. We also use that for the English piece in terms of the essay and communication. But the other thing we're really excited about is in terms of literature. You know what? Wait for it. Kids aren't reading the same novel or pretending to read the same novel, pretending to discuss it and get it.
Wow.
What we do to teach literary analysis is we have them pick a book they love, and we have individual conferences with them over the course. It just incorporates as a part of the day when they're doing independent work. We take them aside and we have a book talk, and we teach them how to read literature in the context of their own stories.
Love it.
I wish I would have had that choice. I'm serious. Like I struggle at reading. I'm dyslexic, and it's just not my thing. If I could have been able to choose the books, because the only books I read are books that I've got to be full in on, Otherwise, it's just like my brain says, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. I pretend to read a lot of books in high school.
Yeah.
Pretended to read like all of the books in high school.
A lot of clip notes. Yep.
Oh yeah. All right. So
right.
talk about that. Like talk about where does that strategy come from? And then how does that play out in some of these bigger projects that you're doing? What does that look like?
Well, I think the main piece there, like to me, is that revision piece and the feedback and the discussion. And so the projects are slightly different. So those were 2 to 3 weeks per project-ish. We had 2 first semester. They're gearing up for a big one in a couple weeks. They don't know it yet, but well, they know it. They just don't know exactly when it's due. Because we pick a big question and then we study it and work on it. And then it's like, okay, and now that you've gotten this background information. So one was on kind of early ancient civilizations and comparing and talking about them and picking some that you want to study and what do you find and what makes them unique, but what makes them all the same? Why do we have civilizations? What is it about humanity that needs that? Because they bring in literature and you have all of these other pieces, and we're bringing in science and connecting with one of their science teachers that majority of them have a lot. And in order to try and further that knowledge and connect those things together. So, I mean, a lot of it is just checking in and just that feedback loop of, that's great. Now, what about this piece? Or how is that part going? And what do you think about this? And just pushing them a little bit more to revise and revise. And we have definitely seen that has been the hardest part for the students. Yes. And projects a bit, because they think, oh, I turn it in, I'm done. Yep. Essays have been the biggest one. They're writing, but I did it. Like, yes, you did a draft, a version, but there's always editing to be done. And that has been a really, really tough one. So I think at first they were really upset about that it wasn't just turned in and done. But I think they've also seen that, okay, you didn't like, the feedback you received on this. And usually, and still with the kids, it's their grade. And we try not to focus on the grade, but they still focus on the grade. But they want to make it better. And so we have that conversation, and here is how to make it better. And usually that conversation goes kind of around in a circle, but I did like that minimum piece. Like, yes, but it could be better. And then once they see their final version, they do see a difference in their work, which is good. Yeah. There is still resistance because, they're kids.
Yeah. And they're really good at school.
Yeah.
They're so good at playing school, aren't they?
Yeah. Yep.
I love that though, because I just keep thinking, like, if I was teaching that class and the kids are like, you mean you want me to write it again? And I'd be like, yes. And you need to understand, when I went to school before a computer, I had to rewrite the same story 5 times. 5 times. I'm only asking you to do 2 revisions. And I had to do it by hand in cursive writing. You get to just type it out. You get to talk to your computer and do it. Yeah, don't give me this. I'm asking you to revise where you get to cut some paragraphs and spell check. And everything's already red underlined for you. Come on. So easy.
Turn in red squiggly lines to me.
Yeah, that's right. Come on. Right, Step number 1, get rid of all red squiggly lines. Let's just start there. And don't complain to me. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I love that. That's just, I love that approach. I love the standards-based approach, and trying to figure out that. Well, I want to dig in a little bit because we don't get this very often where we get a tech coach with a teacher. So I wanted to dig in a little bit with you, Jessica, about it looks like you've been a coach for about 4 years. I think a high school coach.
This is only my second year, actually.
Oh, your second year. Okay.
I was a coach for 4 years.
Oh, she was a coach for 4.
Classroom, and so our roles kind of reversed.
Well, then this is awesome.
Yeah.
So, as coach,
yes.
Okay. So, as a coach and former coach, how have you seen, like, you guys have been you rolled out this one-to-one program a couple of years ago. And what are you seeing? Like, I love the way the two of you are approaching learning, but are you seeing this? Is it starting to spread? What is your professional development looking like? How have you seen this over the years? What is that looking at a larger scale at your school?
So the professional development was very structured last year. I think that was good in a way. Staff didn't always like it, but it was good to have everyone on the same page, coming together, kind of systematically going through some structure to it. This year, it's not as structured. It's more as needed, one-to-one. What are you doing? What do you want to move forward? What are some big things that are going on? Because there's still, of course, always changes, new curricular adoptions, new programs, new grading programs, all sorts of things going on. But I've definitely seen a shift from teachers using technology as push the same stuff out to the kids, that now it is becoming a way for the teachers to innovate. So they're getting kind of some of their own agency. And now it's starting to filter to the students, where the students are getting that agency of they are creating and they are, doing new things with their technology and showing different strengths and talents that they have to their teachers using that technology. So I think we're getting there. I mean, the problem with technology is it's never done.
Right.
That's a good and a bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally a problem.
Well, but I think part of that is the same mindset you see with students you get with, I would say teachers. Like I always have teachers like, so if I take your 3 trainings, that means I'm done. I know it all. And I'm like,
I'm all good.
No,
Yeah.
that's not how technology works. I'm going to show you one tool and that tool is going to update between the next time we meet. You're going to have to relearn the tool. That's just tech. You're never done. You're never going to be done.
Yeah. The button moves and it's okay.
Yeah.
But, and that's kind of the part of it, is getting to that adaptive piece. But teachers are starting to realize, okay, even the little things like our LMS, we're using Canvas here, the little things that it gives you that are kind of those turn in filing, the same time you can give immediate feedback to students. So even though that seems like a little thing and it seems like a technical thing and it seems like a worksheet replacement or things like that, you are actually giving that feedback to the students and they are interacting with it, which is way more powerful. And then it comes back to you. So you have faster communication and feedback with students. That also alleviates a lot of time for teachers. They are trying new things because they aren't buried under a stack of paper.
I like that.
So that has been a big thing. And I had working with a teacher the other day, she commented, they just did a quiz in Canvas. And she's like, I'll try it. But she realized, she's like, I noticed we did a quiz on paper, okay? And I gave feedback. I wrote things, kids got things wrong, kid looked at it, tossed it aside, meh. They did it in Canvas, got immediate feedback on what was right and wrong, came up to challenge my question asking, asked about the questions, got clarification, wanted to know what the right answer was and why it was that type of thing. She's like, they've never done that before. So the kids are accessing that feedback, even though the teachers were giving it before, but they're using it now, which is more powerful. And so they are trying more things. And they're like, oh, so what if I try this? Or what if I do this? And now I have freedom to look for more materials or do these or send them out to find these things. So it's starting to build and grow. It's not a fast process by any means. And it's not a comfortable process for everybody either. But I've definitely seen that growth from, the pen and paper replacement to actually making a difference and a change in the way students are learning and interacting with their teachers and things.
And how long have you been in a one-to-one? Or is this year 2, year 3? 3, 4? 2?
2, 1-to-1.
Yeah. Some of us had like Chrome carts before.
Right.
So I had it for
But full 1-to-1 second year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I love. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
So I was just gonna say, I love I always have this conversation with teachers when they move to the paperless feedback and the instant feedback and the ability for students to interact and that instantaneous, and kids actually read it and they actually use it, and that's awesome. So I think that knowing some of your teachers and them starting to move in that direction, that's fantastic. It's great. Can you talk, what are some other examples that are maybe even further along in that? I know last year some of the English department was working on 20-time projects.
Yeah.
So what are some, if you would say, like really innovative things that are happening that are kind of pushing the boundaries in the class?
Do you want me to talk about Brandon?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of our 20-time teachers from last year, he has a senior writing class this semester. And so what he's done is he's kind of moved from the whole notion of and he's still doing 20-time project with some of his classes, but what he's done with his senior writing is he's basically he's flipping it to, I thought you'd love this. He's flipping the classroom.
Sweet.
He's doing all of his major direct instruction with the videos at home.
Awesome.
So that as the kids are in class, he's writing workshop with them. Now the 20-time project comes into it because essentially there are 5 major pieces. They are all on a theme around a cause, a need, something that the kids really care about. And they're designed developmentally so that the easier ones come first, the proposals, and it's not like the traditional research paper. And then ultimately he's taking all of these papers, because it is a writing class. The kids then also have the options of blogs, podcasts. There's a lot of variety in the pieces they can do. And then it will be the digital portfolio at the end that they walk out the door with.
Very cool.
Very cool. I love it.
And what grade is that?
That's a senior writing elective,
Yeah.
but he's done the 20-time project with 9th and 10th.
So 20 times, like 20% time, like the idea of genius hour or 20% time or something. Wow. That's fantastic. And I love that because I think one of the things, let me just ask the question rather than me thinking I know the answer already. Has he found that has helped with the quote unquote senioritis when kids have that much control over, and they're going to walk away, like you are building something that when you leave here as a senior, you're going to have a website or a blog or something that is beyond high school. Like this is something that could land you a job, get you into university, do something else with. Has he noticed that at all?
Well, I think that's the goal, but it's been
Okay.
2 weeks. So we're hopeful.
It's been 2 weeks. Okay. So this is brand new. All right, cool.
It's a semester class. So yes, exactly. Spring semester, of a senior year.
Yeah.
We're in Greta.
Okay.
We may have a lot of Kleenex and chocolate in support of this for him because there may be some rough moments.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just say, like, I'm doing, I just, again, was talking with the teacher that I've been working with up in Marysville School District here in the state. And she's getting ready for that senioritis spring semester. And so she's doing it very much the same thing. These kids are building a portfolio. They're spending, I think once a week, they go to Indeed.com and they're looking up job openings.
Oh.
And they're practicing writing applications. They're writing their resume. They're starting their LinkedIn profile. They're getting their social media in order as they get ready to graduate. Writing their bios. They're going in and like you writing, right? So they're writing bios for all of their websites. Like, what does your bio need to say? What are the keywords for your industry? So they're looking up, like on Indeed.com, you want to be a dentist? Fantastic. What are the keywords that a dentist that you're finding in all of these job openings? How do you make sure those end up in your profile? And helping kids really understand that you can grab this information out there. I was just helping another friend who he's graduating from a university in Texas, and his girlfriend lives up in Vancouver, Canada. And so he was like, can you look at my LinkedIn profile? Because he's getting ready to graduate and he's looking for a job in website security, like data security is what he's getting his degree in. And so he sends me his LinkedIn profile and I'm like, you really need to work on this. He's a senior at university, right? And I'm like, this is not good. Like, first of all, you don't have a background photo. You don't have enough connections. Like, go out and find out what are the key words, because when people do a job search and they're looking for employees, you got to know what those key words are for your industry. So being able to just break some of that down and making sure that ends up in your writing, and make sure that ends up so that you're talking the language that people are looking for, I think is such a key concept that is beyond high school. But you can start working on that now to set up those profiles online and in your portfolio or your website. Make sure you're hitting those. Like, if you know you want to do X, Y, and Z, how do you make sure that you're already preparing that? And to me, that's perfect for last semester seniors.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's actually what our kids do with their projects and their work. Is they have a class website, for a Google site, and they have all of their work on there. They're going to add their essays and things like that, and we talked to them about, okay, well, you guys made this at the beginning and you put down my totally awesome, super duper
Tupac tweaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other day we're like, all right, so this is actually an academic website. This is to show how wonderful you are and how intelligent you are academically to the rest of the world. This is going to be linked to your name. This is going to be linked as to what you are presenting the world. So let's work on that, shall we? And so, and having that conversation of, you need to be projecting, the image that you want seen of yourself online. And this is where it starts. And so our kids are sophomores right now, but having that conversation and building that portfolio now, you can have sites where you have a 10th grade year, an 11th grade year, 12th grade, and having that conversation of building your work and showing what you can do and what you know and different skills that you have. Because some of our students have amazing talents outside of the school, but they are building that into their website through things like we have extension activities where they can pick kind of their passion, and demonstrate a skill or some of their learning through that passion. And so, some are kind of turning into, sports profiles of themselves. Yeah. Some are showing the YouTube videos they create and that type of thing where, yes, demonstrate your strengths, but let's make sure it is in a professional and academic manner. And having that conversation, because they don't get that yet.
Well, and I think that's that's the perfect place to do. And I want to talk to you about my goddaughters who go to your high school here after we hang up. I don't want, because if I put their name in the podcast, then I'll really be in trouble, but we'll talk about them afterwards. But one of them, the 9th grader, is an amazing artist. And I don't think anybody at school knows other than friends, because she has a separate Instagram that is just for her artwork. So she's got 3 Instagram accounts, but one of them is just her artwork, and it's incredible. And now she just started a TikTok account, but her TikTok account is her. She now videos herself making this artwork and then like speeds it up for kids. And to me, I was thinking about her when you were saying that, like, here's a girl who's got this incredible talent that she's not the most amazing artist in the world, but she's an incredible talent that she loves to do. She is passionate about her drawings. Where's the place that she can showcase that she can showcase her learning and in her draft to a final product, and be able to talk about the inspiration she has for all of these drawings that she does, which come from her day-to-day life being a 9th grader, right? Mm-hmm. That's their inspiration for her drawings. I mean, how great is that you would have a website where you could show that stuff, that it's not just about math, history, science, and going to school, but these kids have incredible talents that are not always showcased inside of a school day, and allowing them the freedom to show that as well. And I think that's a huge, and there's no reason why we can't do that today. You know,
there's something like a Google site. There's a lot of ways that integrates into school too. So, I mean, you can't see them, but behind me, there's a bunch of paintings that students have done connected to what we were doing in history class back when, years ago now, it seems, back in normal traditional history class, but they could still use your talent to demonstrate your learning from something, or what struck you, what was, passionate or heartfelt that you glean from the history. And so I think there's always an opportunity to use your talent and your passion in, whatever form.
Yeah.
And we were just a teeny bit seditious with this on another front of innovation, which is for fall parent conferencing. We didn't sit down in a cafeteria over a table and talk about grades. We opened up our classroom and we used the monitors to show the kids projects and their website, and invited the kids to be here to actually give them, show them to their parents. And that was a very real experience for them. Not so much the experience showing it to their own parents, but having another monitor over going, wow, my project sucks.
Yeah. That's the best moment.
Good.
And it wasn't, and they were like, I thought I worked hard on that. I thought I did a good job on that, because that was the normal standard. And then I saw theirs. Oh, that's what you meant.
Right.
Bam, pick it up a notch.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things about those moments. I remember I was doing student-led conferences when I was a 6th grade teacher, and we had this one of my students was just really disorganized about everything, and we're talking pre-technology. So like the portfolio was still in a 3-ring binder type thing. Mm-hmm. And I was having conversations with his parents. I'm like, we just got to help him with his organization. Like, he's losing papers at school and this, that, and the other thing. And so we had student-led conferences where I had, I think, 4 kids presenting to their parents at the same time. Well, his parents come in and his papers are all over the place. His binder's a mess. And the other 3 are just like going through this beautiful presentation. And finally the parents are like, oh, I get it. I'm like, yes, this is what we're talking about. He's unorganized for being a 6th grader. Yeah. But sometimes it takes that, right? It's taking somebody else going like, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, that's what oh, I can up my game. I know I can up my game now. So that's great. Well, thank you so much, guys, for a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I don't want to keep you too long because I know it's late and you need to get home to your families as well. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your team teaching approach, some of your insights into coaching and some of the amazing stuff you're doing at your high school. I really appreciate you taking time. If people wanted to reach out to you to learn more or follow up, I really hope you were able to take a video of your classroom tomorrow, not tonight, and send that to me. I'll make sure that's on the podcast because people love that. We had another teacher do that did some flexible seating and it was fantastic. The feedback we got, I was just saying thank you because everybody's always trying to figure out what does that classroom environment have to look like, right? That's a big part of the teaching as well. So if you mind doing that, but if teachers wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way? Would it be to get you on email? Are you on Twitter, Instagram? One of you have a TikTok account? I just trying to read the audience here.
I do not have a TikTok yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
Probably email's the most straightforward for me.
Okay.
I have Instagram and Twitter, but the one I would check most readily would be the email.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. So we'll make sure that those get into the show notes and stuff too. I don't want to say them on the air in case, the thing is out there, but we'll make sure that people can contact you if they would like to in your episode. So really appreciate you guys spending the time. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Chris.
It was awesome. Yeah.
It's good to catch up.
Absolutely. It was awesome.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Shifting Our Schools with your host, Jeff Udick. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit sospodcast.org, facebook.com/Jeff Udick, and on Twitter @JUdick. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Shifting Our Schools.